Guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of working on our GTV 2000 commission build. Today I'm under the car. The reason why is we're going to work on that transmission tunnel and getting it prepared to put in the Tremec T5 transmission in this car. Yes, we're not going with the standard Alfa transmission. I've talked about that a little bit in some of the other videos. We're going with a kind of a more modern, rebuilt Tremec T5 transmission. I think it's going to be perfect for this build. I want to do a gated manual in it, and I can get the shifter further back from the top part of the tunnel. So there'll be a lot of fabrication on this tunnel, but it's going to be really cool when we get finished. So why don't we get started, and I'll show you exactly what I'm going to start working on first. All right, we are up underneath the GTV 2000. As you can see, this is the normal hole here for the transmission right there. That's going to be covered up. We're going to cut off this area here, flatten it up, and get it flat up on the top. So today, what I've got to work with is I need to get this support here out. So I've got a belt sander, handheld belt sander, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to try to expose the welds, drill them out, and then get this out. And what we're going to do is we're going to push this further back just a little. You know, there is some stability here, reinforced here, and then of course back here as well. But we're going to see what we can do. We just really need a little clearance because we're going to cut really about right here to somewhere around right here to get that transmission up in there. So there is definitely some work to be done. So we're going to start with this. We're going to see if we can get this support out without damaging it, because all I want to do is really just shoot it back and then tack weld it in. So that's going to be the first step. So let me show you the transmission. This is it. This is a Tremec right here, T5. It's been fully rebuilt. We just haven't put sensors and stuff on here, speed here. And then of course, this is where our plate and gate will go. Transmission will go here. And yeah, so a couple things we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to cut this ear off here, slide it around, and we're gonna cut these two ears off right here. I might do that one, but I don't think we're gonna have to. Just really probably those two here. This one we're gonna leave on. Now, you do notice there is this blue plate, and this blue plate is a printed plate that we'll use to, of course, marry up the bell housing to the Tremec T5 transmission. So I found this off the internet. We've changed a few of the settings up. I think we're gonna maybe have to lop off a few things. I don't know until we get this thing up in there. But for now, maybe like right here, just kind of round it off. That point there, maybe you can see it better that way. There we go. So this right here gets us started, and we're gonna see where we need to go next. Let's go work back in the car, get up underneath it, and start seeing if we can get these welds exposed, and then I can drill them out. There. All right, guys, I've got it out. As you can see, I thought I was gonna be able to save it. We'll look at that in just a second, but I wasn't. So what I'll do now is kind of grind all this stuff down. We're cutting a lot of this out, so it's not necessarily gonna matter, but just wanna get all the sharp edges and stuff out. It was just a awkward position, not all, very tight to be able to get that completely out. So let's go walk over here. And then you'll see here, I did the best I can. I've got the good shape of it, so that's good. And we can, of course, gauge the metal and get some just like it, and then be able to bend it and go from there. So it was kind of a hollow center, as you know when you're up underneath the car. But anyway, Yeah, so we've got that done. Now let me go back and I'm going to go ahead and grind down all of that. I'll show you that. All right, guys, I've got it ground it down just a little bit. That's really all we need to do because again, we're going to be cutting a lot of this out. I just want to get it down all the sharp edges. So we're good. We're good here. All right. So the next step is going to be getting the transmission back up in here, all the way up to there, to the rear of the motor, and then seeing where we're at here, then we're gonna make our first cut to see if we can get it far enough up that this will go far enough up as well. So we're hoping that's really all we're gonna have to do. There may be some persuasion here in these areas here. Of course, we're gonna cut down that and then close it and weld it up. That hole will be completely covered. No need for it because instead of having the shifter coming up there, we're gonna have it, of course, like I said, somewhere around up in here somewhere. So there we go there. So I think that'll do this phase. So now let's go ahead and get the transmission up and go from there and see what we got to start cutting. All right, guys, transmission's been in and out. We've got marked, as you can see in the yellow lines here up underneath the tunnel where we're gonna make our initial first cut so that we can put the transmission back up in there and then see what else that we have to cut from there. So let's go ahead and get started cutting on those lines. All right, guys, so here we go. I definitely will not bore you on the whole cutting of this tunnel. But as you can see, we're just gonna cut along these lines and then move back up to the top part of the car, the cab of the car, and finish the cut. All right, Brad and I are back in the cab of the car. Brad is now finishing up the cutting. This section has gotta come out. Then we put the transmission back in. Once the transmission is back in, then we will be able to look to see what else we have to cut. We may have to shave a little bit more of the metal off. We may have to do something more drastic, hoping less on the drastic cutting than anything else, but we're really not gonna know until we get this section out, get the transmission back up in there, and then test from there. Well, I should not have said anything. We have to get drastic. So basically what we're going to do, you can even see down on the other side, the white line, we are literally cutting this whole entire tunnel out. Well, not the whole tunnel, half of the top part, the top part of the tunnel. So as you can see, Brad is going through and cutting it. We're being very careful. I'm on the other side looking in to make sure we're not touching the transmission. Everything looks to be going pretty well, but unfortunately there's too many places that this transmission is hitting on this top part of the tunnel that we can't beat it enough to persuade it into allowing the transmission in. And one of the things that we're concerned about really at the end of the day is if we force this without cutting and we start driving the car, we may feel a lot of vibration up underneath this car or resonating into the car itself from this transmission touching the tunnel itself, especially if you're under load, left or right, or whatever the case may be. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to take drastic measures here and completely cut this top part of the tunnel off. All's not lost, of course, because like with any fabrication, we can just redo the tunnel, make it a little bit higher. We're thinking of boxing the tunnel in instead of making it round. There's reasons for that, but one of the biggest things we're doing is we're going to do a gated shifter. So I want it to kind of float in the center and then have everything else forward to the firewall, to the dash, refabricated and new metal put in place. So I think that this design will look good. I know it probably freaks some of the purists out, and I get it. But for us reimagining this car, I think we have a good opportunity to make this thing something special. Alrighty, we are in the cab of the car, and as you can see, this whole tunnel is completely cut out. So we've got a good view of the transmission. We've got the transmission up where we want it right now. Of course, this is where the shifter will be, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. So the next step we have, as I said, is we're gonna get the mount in here and get it mounted up underneath the car. So we're working on getting the right size rubber mount for that. And then the drive shaft will be made. And then from there, we'll move on to removing the motor. But what we're gonna do here is we're gonna build the tunnel in a way that's possibly gonna be kind of flat and kind of rake up a little bit and maybe meet the dash. We're not sure yet, but kind of do that is our thought. We'll be working on that here soon, but not yet. And then here, what we're looking at doing is of course, we have to put the shifter in here. Right now, there's nothing there. So wherever that comes, and what we're gonna do is do a gated manual plate, and then just literally like a Ferrari, right? Just that one, the shifter will be just that small chrome style shifter rod, and then just a ball on top, and then that'll be that part. So as you think about it, like right here is probably where the transmission shifter went and kind of came up. Now we're moving it back, and it's just gonna be straight up from there. So should be pretty cool once we're done. I know it's kind of maybe hard to visualize it now, but I think we've got a good understanding of what we want to do. So again, we're gonna figure out this whole tunnel, how we're gonna set it up. That's coming up on the plate here soon, and then and then we'll go from there. Once that's done, my goodness, I think it's time to send this thing off to the body shop to get everything else finished up and repainted and all that fun stuff. So who knows, we're getting close. Now let me show you the motor here. So I was doing some working with some people and trying to figure out the angle of the motor itself. And a lot of what I've seen, like on the Spiders, is it's almost like it's zero, the motor. So the motor's just basically sitting at a zero angle. We've got a 2.4, 2.5 angle here, front to back, not side to side, front to back, which will be perfectly fine. We've talked to some experts on these motors and said that should not be a problem with these motors. So you can tell the motor is definitely raking down a little bit opposed to being completely level. But I think the GTVs had a little rake on those motors anyway. Comment below if you know what the angle of your GTV motor is. But when we tested it, at least on Spiders, we saw that it was a zero, basically zero or 0.09 or something. It was very small angle, if any, pretty much zero. So that takes care of kind of where the position of the motor is going to be. I know we got wires all over the place. It's all the fuel injection stuff. We're finishing that up as well. Just a lot of stuff going on in this car at one time. But yeah, so the motor looks good, little angle, but we'll be fine. Go from there. So hopefully here in the next week, we'll get this motor back out of the car onto the engine run stand and then get this thing cranked up for the very first time. Hopefully that's coming very, very soon. So, all right, let's wrap this thing up. All right, guys, I know this was a long video on just cutting the tunnel, putting the transmission in place and all that, but I thought this would be a pretty cool project or a piece of the project to see during this build for the commission build itself. The reason why is just to see what we can do or what can be done. I know the purists are probably, their heads are exploding right now, and I get it, 100% get it. If I was in had that mindset, I'd be probably upset too. But this is going to be a good build. This is going to be, at the end of the day, something that's going to be really cool to see on the road, stretch our fabrication skills a little bit more here at Svelto Performance, and go from there. And we will be creating kits for these transmissions, building these transmissions, possibly in-house, and go from there and give you a full kit, or you can send the car to us and we'll do all of this as well. So we appreciate you following along. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell. It always helps us out. The next video, we're gonna still keep working on the transmission. So look for that coming up. And as always, God bless.